First at 6, a former fire chief in Wayne Township is taking heat and questions about his pay. WRTV Investigates has uncovered Randy Adams' administration racked up hundreds of hours in overtime last year and charged taxpayers overtime for travel and attending meetings.
And our Kara Kenny has been digging into this for several months and joins us now with how this happened and why some are pushing for additional oversight. Kara.
We started getting questions back in February about the Wayne Township Fire Department's administration and what some call an excessive amount of pay they received in 2020. It's taken us months to talk to firefighters and sort through hundreds of pages of records. What we found is raising eyebrows. When you think of firefighters, you probably think of rushing to the scene of a burning building, putting out fires, and saving lives. For Wayne Township's fire administration, they do less firefighting and more office work, like overseeing budgets and personnel. It's the administration's compensation that's getting some heat. Can you understand why this raises eyebrows?
Anytime you see salaries up that high, I'd imagine it would raise an eyebrow.
Randy Adams served as Wayne Township's fire chief from 2019 up until he retired May 21st of this year. Are you salaried or are you hourly?
Yeah, I'm hourly.
Records show in 2020, Adams got paid more than $190,000, including $41,000 in overtime. That's 421 hours of overtime for Adams last year, 80% of which was not related to covering shifts. WRTV Investigates counted more than 100 hours of overtime for attending meetings. Why charge the taxpayers overtime to go to meetings?
Well, it's outside my normal business hours.
Adams says his hours were 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., so a 6 a.m. meeting or 4 p.m. meeting was considered overtime. Why schedule them outside your normal business hours?
Some of them were not able to have during the day.
Adams also charged overtime for 3 trips he took with several fire department employees to North Carolina and South Dakota, including a March 1st to March 3rd trip to Brandon, South Dakota last year for a final inspection on 3 fire engines, in which Adams claimed 49 hours of overtime. So did that include sleeping?
Anytime we were gone, yes.
Some taxpayers might say, why charge overtime to go look at fire trucks?
Again, it's outside the normal working hours, and everyone should be fairly compensated, and everybody that went on the trip was.
Records show Adams' salary last year was $140,000. Some will say you're already making 6 figures. Why do you need to charge overtime on top of that?
Well, it's the way the system's set up right now. We're not salary exempt, and we're eligible to get the overtime.
Adams says he and his administration are hourly. WRTV Investigates checked with several other fire departments in central Indiana, and their administrations are salaried and not eligible for overtime. So we asked the state fire union about fire departments paying their administrations overtime. The president told us, "I never heard of any fire department in the country that allows such a practice."
Just because we're different doesn't mean it's wrong.
Adams points out in 2020, they underspent their $39 million budget by $5 million. With the pandemic, he says it took extra hours to administer the fire department.
With COVID, we had almost 15,000 staffing hours lost just due to COVID.
But WRTV Investigates uncovered administrative overtime in 2019, before COVID. Adams and his 2 deputy chiefs, Stuart Sharp and Mike Lang, racked up more than 1,300 hours of overtime in 2019 and 2020, combined for a total of $113,000. The decision to pay fire department administration overtime is not sitting well with some taxpayers, including Wayne Township resident Gene Conzen.
I just find that just not a very good use of our funds. It is unethical to pay yourself more than you should.
Conzen served as Wayne Township's fire chief for 10 years, including 2011 through the end of 2018. So when you were the chief, did you get overtime?
Absolutely not. When you're the fire chief, it's pretty much a 24/7. It's not a set time.
Were you salaried or were you hourly?
Salary.
Conzen's successor, Randy Adams, says the township board never established fire administration as salaried. Adams also points to language in Wayne Township's union contract and their rules and regulations, language Adams says allows administrators to get overtime. But Conzen and current firefighters with the department say Adams' interpretation of these documents is flat out wrong.
So I was kind of shocked. Even if you're under budget, paying yourself more than you're supposed to is wrong.
Retired Wayne Township firefighter Ted Ritchie agrees.
It bothers me. I know so many people are really struggling to make ends meet during all of this. I don't see how that really serves the community. I don't see how it's justifiable.
Ritchie wants to know, where is the oversight?
The whole thing about serving the public, it needs to be transparent.
The township board approves the fire department's budget.
Who approved the overtime for you? The trustee? Did anyone approve it? The board?
No, I just put my time in.
Township trustee Chuck Jones appointed Adams. The trustee also has to review any expenditure over $5,000, but he does not have to review overtime.
I knew there was an excessive amount of overtime here and within the departments.
Did you have to approve it?
No, these guys are worth every dime they're making. How much is too much money? Hell, I don't know.
With Adams now retired, Wayne Township firefighters are now working under a new chief, still fighting fires and saving lives, but with lingering questions about how tax dollars are spent.
Well, we'll stand by everything we did.
The Indiana State Board of Accounts, the state agency that audits local government, says they plan to look into this in the coming months. The SBOA will be able to determine if the administration's overtime was allowed. Working for you, Kara Kenny, WRTV.
Kara, thank you. We did reach out to the township board multiple times for a response. We are waiting to hear back. Adams says his administration has worked to save taxpayers money by renegotiating contracts with 10 vendors, and that his admin's overtime is a drop in the bucket compared to the fire department's overall budget. Tomorrow evening on the news at 6, you'll hear from the township trustee and the new fire chief on the changes they plan to put into place to address the issue of administration overtime. And if you have a concern about your own pay or overtime at your employer, you can file a complaint with the Indiana Department of Labor. Both the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act and the Indiana Minimum Wage Law require employers to pay employees at time and a half of their regular rate of pay if you work more than 40 hours during a work week. However, there are exceptions. To learn more about those exceptions and to file a wage claim with the Indiana Department of Labor, go to this story in the WRTV app and at WRTV.com. The Indiana Department of Labor investigates wage claims to help resolve disputes between employees and companies. You can also call them at 317-232-2655. Again, that's 317-232-2655.